My daughter laughed in court when she saw me, standing alone at the back of the courtroom. It wasn't the kind of laugh a nervous person makes. It was confident, almost cruel, as if she had already won and was enjoying watching me lose. I remember looking at her and wondering how the little girl who once held my hand every night could have become someone who smiled while her own father was being destroyed. The courtroom was packed that morning. My daughter, Emily, sat beside her attorney at the front. She wore an expensive black suit, her hair perfectly styled and a smile that never seemed to disappear. Across from her sat the opposing attorney and several people I didn't recognize. I was there because Emily had filed a legal claim involving my property and finances after my wife's death, according to her lawyer. I was no longer capable of managing my own affairs. They wanted the court to declare me incompetent and transfer control of everything I owned: my home, my savings, my business, even the small piece of land where my wife and I had planned to spend our retirement. I had spent 40 years building those things. But what hurt most wasn't the money. It was that my own daughter was the person trying to take them from me. When the judge entered, everyone stood. I slowly rose from my chair. The judge was a stern-looking man in his 60s. His name was Judge Robert Harrison. I had never met him before, or at least I thought I hadn't. He took his seat and began reviewing the documents. Emily's attorney immediately started speaking. "Your Honor, my client believes her father is no longer capable of making rational, financial decisions. His behavior has become increasingly unpredictable, and there are concerns about his ability to manage his estate." I listened quietly. Then Emily's attorney presented several photographs of my house. He described it as neglected. He showed bank statements and claimed I had made suspicious withdrawals. He even produced a medical report suggesting that I was suffering from memory problems. I wanted to interrupt. Every document had been twisted. Every photograph had been taken out of context. The withdrawals were legitimate business expenses. The house wasn't neglected. I had simply stopped spending money on unnecessary repairs after my wife died, and the medical report. It wasn't even from my regular doctor. It was from a physician Emily had arranged for me to see once. But I remained silent. My lawyer had told me to let them finish. Then Emily took the witness stand. She looked directly at me. For a second, I saw the child she used to be. Then she smiled. "Dad wasn't always like this," she said softly, "but after Mom died, he changed." Her voice sounded perfect. Almost too perfect. She described herself as a devoted daughter who had tried desperately to protect me. She told the judge she had offered to move me into a care facility. She said I had become paranoid. She said I had forgotten important conversations. And then she said something that nearly broke me. "He doesn't trust anyone anymore." She whispered, "Not even me." The courtroom became silent. The judge looked at me. I could see uncertainty in his eyes. Then my attorney stood. "Your Honor, we have evidence that directly contradicts the claims being made." He handed the judge a sealed envelope. The judge opened it. Inside were bank records, property documents, medical evaluations, and several photographs. But there was one final item, a handwritten letter. The judge read it. Slowly his expression changed. Emily noticed her smile disappeared. "For the first time, Your Honor." Her attorney asked. The judge didn't answer. He continued reading, then he looked at me. Not at my daughter, at me. His face suddenly became pale. He leaned toward the clerk and whispered something. The clerk looked confused. The judge then whispered again. This time I heard only 3 words. "It's him." The entire courtroom seemed to freeze. Emily frowned. "What's happening?" she asked. The judge stared at me for several seconds. Then he asked, "Sir, what is your full name?" I gave it. His eyes widened. "Where were you stationed in 1987? My heart stopped. I hadn't heard anyone mention that year in decades. I slowly answered. The judge leaned back in his chair. "I knew it," he whispered. Emily looked between us. "Your Honor, I don't understand." The judge removed his glasses. Then he said something that changed everything. "Your father saved my life." Nobody moved. Emily stared at me. The judge explained that when he was a young man, He had been involved in a serious accident during an overseas assignment. He had been trapped in a damaged vehicle, while everyone around him believed there was no chance of survival. A young soldier had ignored orders and gone back for him. That soldier had carried him through dangerous terrain for hours. Before rescuers arrived, that soldier had been me. The judge remembered my face. He remembered my name. He remembered the scar on my left hand. But I didn't remember him. There had been too many people, too many years, too many moments I had tried to forget. The courtroom suddenly felt different, but the judge wasn't finished. He held up the letter. "This was written by your wife." My chest tightened. My wife had died 2 years earlier. I had never seen that letter. The judge explained that it had been submitted as part of the evidence because my wife had apparently anticipated that something like this might happen. Emily's face turned white. The judge read portions of the letter aloud. My wife had written that she feared our daughter was being manipulated by people who wanted control of our assets. She had documented conversations, financial transfers, and suspicious behavior. She had also written that if anything happened to her, she wanted me to remain independent and never allow anyone to pressure me into signing away my property. Emily suddenly stood. "That isn't possible." The judge looked at her sit down. She slowly returned to her chair. Then my attorney presented another piece of evidence. A recording. It was a conversation between Emily and a financial advisor. In the recording, Emily discussed how much she expected to receive. Once I was declared incompetent, she laughed about how easy it would be to convince the court. Then she said something that made my stomach turn. "He'll be alone soon. He doesn't have anyone left." I closed my eyes. Those words hurt more than anything else. Not because she wanted my money, because she believed I had nobody. She had forgotten that I was her father, the man who had stayed awake beside her hospital bed when she was sick, the man who had worked double shifts so she could attend college, the man who had sold his old car when she needed tuition, the man who had walked her down the aisle. I opened my eyes and looked at her. She couldn't meet my gaze. The judge ordered an immediate investigation into the financial documents and referred the suspected fraud to the appropriate authorities. The petition against me was dismissed, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty after the hearing. Emily approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Dad." I stopped walking. She was crying. For the first time that day, she looked like my daughter again. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I looked at her for a long time. "No," I said quietly. "You made a choice." She began crying harder. "I was scared." "You weren't scared of losing me." I replied, "You were scared of losing what I owned." She had no answer. I walked away. Outside the courthouse, the sunlight felt strangely warm. My attorney asked if I was okay. I told him I didn't know I had won the case. I had kept my home and everything I had worked for, but I had lost something that couldn't be restored by any judge. Trust months passed. I never spoke publicly about what happened. I moved into a smaller house and donated much of my estate to a foundation that helped families facing financial hardship. One afternoon, I received a letter. It was from Emily. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask me to forgive her. She simply admitted what she had done. She wrote that she had become obsessed with wealth and listened to people who convinced her that I was weak. She said she had laughed in that courtroom because she thought she had already won. And then she wrote the sentence, "I will never forget. I didn't realize I had already lost the moment I chose money over you." I read the letter twice, then I put it in a drawer. I still don't know whether I'll ever completely forgive her. Maybe forgiveness isn't something you give because someone deserves it. Maybe sometimes it's something you do, so their betrayal doesn't control the rest of your life. As for Judge Harrison, we remained in contact for years. One day he told me something I'll never forget. "When I saw you standing in that courtroom," he said, "I thought I was looking at an old photograph. But when I realized who you were, I understood something." "What?" He smiled. "You saved my life decades ago. And this time you saved yourself." I never expected my daughter to laugh at me in court. I never expected a judge to recognize me. And I certainly never expected the truth to arrive in the form of a whispered sentence. That changed everything. But sometimes justice doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in an envelope. Sometimes it waits decades. And sometimes just when someone thinks they've already won, the truth walks into the courtroom and makes everyone go silent.